At the group, but certainly glad to be talking with you all here. So why am I doing what I'm doing and why am I here? Well, in my case, it's very personal. I still remember the day. It was in 1997 when I was called into an IEP meeting at my son's school. He was in first grade at the time, and first time I ever been to something like that. So my wife and I went to the meeting, we sat down and the teachers were there and the specialists were there, and they started talking about our son Scott and some of the words they were using and language to talk about what was going on with his behavior. Some of the issues they had in their classroom was kind of, I didn't know what to think, but I looked at my wife and I still remember seeing just the tears well up in her eyes at that time, because she worked in the school, so she was a speech therapist. She knew kind of the words, the language you were using, and she came face to face. I've got a special needs son. What's happening? What's going on? So for me, it wasn't quite as startling at the time, but I came to learn. And so after that meeting, we did go out and we saw a psychiatrist, and we got the diagnosis for our son, and it was Asperger's syndrome, which still at the time didn't bother me so much because I actually had a nephew, my sister's older son had Asperger's, and he had other issues too that were pretty bad when he was young, but he was able to overcome them, and his name was Mike. He was doing good in school. He was going to graduate from high school. He was planning to go to college. Eventually he would go to college, and now he's living independently. So, I looked at that and I thought, okay, so we've got Asperger's, right? And Scott was doing just great. He was just doing fine in the schools. He had a lot of support. He had therapists. He had voc rehab right there helping him with different life skills, a lot of support. And actually had an occupational therapist who taught him how to ride a bike, and I thought that was pretty cool because Dad couldn't do it, so she did it. So we were just very blessed. But then once he got to high school, once he got out of high school, we faced this falling off the cliff, which is what is just happening all over our country. Once they age out of the system, once they're 21 years old, they lose those services. And then you face reality of, I've got an adult child with this disability. And Scott, he did go to a tech school. He got involved in culinary arts. He started out real fine. But eventually, we started having issues. We had problems because he was thrown into the fray. He had no special help. So, what's it like to have autism? It is a lot of things. It's a wide spectrum. You've got low functioning, you've got high functioning autism, everything in between. But in many ways, I hope this works. Here we go. Just punch on this, right? There. In many ways, it's like this. I think this picture tells us a lot. Us as neurotypicals, we've all faced a situation where we feel left out, where we feel ignored. But we have the ability within us to deal with that situation and move on. We know emotions, we understand them better, and we can deal with them, and we've got that ability. But for somebody with autism, it's a lot like this boy in this picture. This is every day of your life. For me, dealing with my son and others that I've worked with, it's kind of like they're always being ignored. They're in the wall, they're wallflowers. For my son, it was like a veil, sometimes a brick wall surrounding him. And how does he get out of it? How does he communicate it? That's a real problem. So anyways, continuing my journey here, 2013, we moved here, South Carolina. We were living in Wisconsin. And, my wife got a job and I started looking for a job. And any change can be difficult for anybody. But for somebody with autism, any change can be very difficult. And so it was for our son, too. He developed depression. His anxiety got worse. Just things kind of got worse. How else can I say it? So I started, all of a sudden, like what I say with people, it's like God spoke to me and he said, it's not about you and your career and what you're pursuing. but it's about your son. And you haven't been connecting with your son. It's time for you to start. He's going to be the future. So that kind of set me on this whole path that I've been on since about that time. And it also opened me up to other people. It's not about you, it's about them. And I started connecting with support groups. I was hoping Susan Kastner would be here. I thought she would be. She's been great. She and I, we used to be in this thing called CRD group. And that was the first group I connected with, and it really opened up my eyes to this great problem we've got with transition. So this started the journey for me then 2015 or so, looking what's available out there, what is going on in our community here. I'm not in Wisconsin anymore, I'm in Greenville. What's going on? And what I saw was, and what my son experienced too, is we've got like grand scale programs, we've got training programs, we've put 30 people through this training program, they're all doing the same thing. At the end of it, maybe one or two gets jobs through it. Or we've got something like, a soft skills workshop where they come in, they get training in a classroom, they're shown how to make their resume, how to interview for a job, how to dress for a job, but then they're given a flyer, check out this job fair, see you later kind of a thing. And that's what we have going on. So, I wasn't seeing much hope there until in 2015, finally, I found the ARC, and the ARC found me, as I might put it, and I started working as a job coach, employment specialist with them in 2015. And then last year in August of 2018, I got hooked up with SOS Healthcare out of Myrtle Beach. And SOS Healthcare is in Myrtle Beach. They've been around since, I think it's 1989. They actually have 13 programs in 9 counties in South Carolina. Their latest program, which is really exciting, is Oak Creek Farm. They have a lot of information on their website. I'm very excited. I'm going to be finding out more about this in a couple of months. In April, I'm going to be meeting with the folks there, and actually the executive director is going to be coming up here at the end of March too. But this will be an affordable housing community for adults with autism and intellectual disabilities. They're in the fundraising stage for this now. They're building it in Conway, South Carolina. So that's the other thing we have to look at is residential. Where can our people live where they can get the supports? But for me, it's the employment, it's the jobs. So these are the counties they're in, and now they're in Greenville and Spartanburg with what I'm doing. They became a DDSN approved provider last year, and that's throughout the state of South Carolina. So I'm doing the work up here as a job coach. Let's see, what's the next slide here? I'm trying to think. Oh, a couple of information statistics about autism in our country, in the world. It's one of the fastest growing disabilities. We've got a 1 in 68 diagnosis rate for births of children or babies with autism. This is the figure that hits me the most, because of all the adults, all the people with autism, 90% are unemployed. It's a huge number. It's a great resource for our community, but they have their issues. They need help. They need job coaches, people like me and others to be working with them in the workplace. And here's, in South Carolina, this is from DDSN. They found that of all the people with disabilities, this includes physical and cognitive disabilities, 75% of those folks can work. So there is a lot of potential out there. Oh, this one popped up too. This is a big one, $1.4 million. That number represents the lifetime financial impact of having a child with autism on a family and society. And if they have other issues, which a lot of times there's dual diagnosis, it's greater than that. What's this? Okay, and then this last one is 500. Wow, that's a big number. $500,000. That represents, we're looking at in our country, 50,000 young adults with autism a year aging out of the schools. So in 10 years, we're going to be looking at 500,000 young adults with autism in our community. And I did want to say with that $1.4 million, what a help we can make on these families if we can get our young adults working and in jobs and helping to pay the rent. Because not all of them, and even the support they get, $750 a month with SSI, that is not going to, take care of everything. So what is it that with SOS Healthcare is so unique, and what is it that attracted me to do this kind of work? And it's competitive employment. Competitive employment, that's work performed in an integrated work market. The individual is paid the same amount as anybody else. He's expected, or she's expected to do the same work. They just need help. They need support as anybody with disability. And as you know, Walgreens Distribution Center, ideal case scenario where this is working really good. They have 30% or more people with disabilities working out there, and they're all integrated and getting a lot of supports within the work environment. I got to get a drink of water here real quick. Where's my water? Oh, it's right here. I'm not used to doing all this talking, so I'm not a professional presenter.
Where's the Walgreens Distribution Center? Is that in Greenville?
That's in Anderson. Which is great, but you do have to have transportation to get out there. It's off of the freeway. It's actually before you get to Anderson. But, for many people here, you're looking at 45 minutes or more. So, but if you can live in Anderson, it'd be really good. So what are the steps? What is it about what I'm doing that makes it what I call comprehensive and individualized? It's not a one-size-fits-all. And that's really important when we're looking at, especially autism, especially people with cognitive disabilities. You can't put them all through the same thing and expect they're all going to do the same thing, get the same kind of jobs. So it begins with the assessment, and this could be a 1 to 2 hour interview in the home with a parent or caregiver. And this is where we start developing what I would call the individual, not education plan like what we've got in the schools, but let's have an individual employment plan for each of the people we're working with. Let's find out what are their strengths, what kind of work have they done, what kind of jobs have they had, what kind of weaknesses do they have, where do they need help, where are we going to have to really spend some more time with them. So that's the assessment. Then the community-based instruction is where we actually take them out in the community, we start forming a relationship with them, we go shopping with them, see how they handle getting items off a shelf, using money, checking out, going to a restaurant, how they interact with people. And then we have the job development, which could be the longest part, and that's the nuts and bolts of getting a job. So it's, applying for jobs online, filling out paper applications, preparing for interviews, how to dress. This is all the soft skills type stuff, how to dress for interviews, handle interview questions. We go with them on the interview. So it's everything up to that part of getting the job. And then what makes the work I do with SOS so unique is that next step, the on-the-job training and coaching, which can be really extensive. It's not just, checking in once a week. When they start a job, we're there every shift, working and helping them to learn the job, how to do the job. Very importantly, building up natural supports in the workplace, finding other people in the workplace who can help them maybe with keeping track of time during a break, punching in some of the different, what we call executive function things that they might need help with. And then forming relationships with the employer, seeing what the employer knows and helping to educate that employer, on these are the needs of this person and the way they need help. Eventually we have the fade out. They know from the very beginning when we do an assessment that this is not going to last forever. You have a lot of support. A lot of this goes over a year, and it can even carry forward because it is through the Medicaid waiver. But eventually, we're just checking in maybe once or twice a week, eventually once a month. And, usually it's a face-to-face. It's not always, most times it's not a phone call. Checking with the employer. And then we're always available to come back in if there is an issue or a problem. We can come back in and we go back to that phase, back to the on-the-job training and coaching. So that kind of gives you an idea of how the system works. Now I think the next slide, what do I have on the next one? I'm kind of losing track here. Oh, yeah, people I've placed in jobs and that I'm still working with. And I do want to point out Jesse has been working at a place called the Bargain Hunt for over a year. I think it's been a year and a half. And I got him that job actually when I was with the ARC. I'm working with him now with SOS. And so he's an individual when we were in the community-based instruction part. I just wanted to point this out. We had an interview at Ingalls, and that was one at Cherrydale. And he did fine. Everything seemed to be okay. Of course, he doesn't talk too much, so I help with a lot of that. And they wanted him to start there, but after we were leaving, I said, what do you think? And he said, it's just too loud. It was the music in the background at that particular Ingalls, because I don't know if they're all like that. He said, that music is too loud, he wouldn't be able to focus and do it. And I said, okay, we'll do something else. So I did get him a job. He's a stocker at Bargain Hunt on Haywood Road. And his job is, once the product gets off of the truck, it's on pallets or something, he goes through it, he organizes it, takes it out, puts it on the shelves, makes it look real nice, straightens out the shelves, and he goes back and he gets more. And at least now he's working 4 days a week, so his hours are kind of closer to what we want. James was higher functioning Asperger's type individual. I got him a job at Publix in Spartanburg as a bagger, and he was working on his GED. So he was one of these that was put through the system. He got the occupational certificate, and he was going back to get his GED, and I'm hoping that he's got it at this point. And then the last one there is Josh, and he's working at the Hare and Hound in Landrum, and Josh is a real people person, kind of like my friend Brady back there. He's the first person they see when they come in there, and he's smiling, he greets the customers, he's rolling napkins there, getting it all ready for lunch. And then when I came in to coach him, I showed him how to clean the tables, and I used like a pictogram or something. I had pictures of each step for cleaning the table, and he used that and was able to do that. And that was like 2 hours a day, so that was his job at that time. So that's kind of the idea of clients that I've worked with. So what about this engaged employment? You know, what is the vision for Greenville, Spartanburg counties? What can we do? How can we make this even a bigger thing here in Greenville? So that's where engaged employment comes in. Oops, I'm supposed to do that, but if I go here, right? So the mission statement of engaged employment, helping adults with autism and intellectual disabilities overcome the barriers, gain independence by providing comprehensive, like I just went through, employment services. And then the big thing here is partnering with employers too. I've been having a lot of meetings. I met with a lady at a hotel restaurant chain here, and they've got new ownership, and they've got a number of hotel operations here. They could have a lot of jobs for bussers, food runners, kind of a thing. We had a good meeting. So I'm looking for those businesses where they really have a need. We've got a 4% or less unemployment rate, so we definitely have employers and businesses that need people to fill the jobs. This is one way we can do it, through this, job coaching, competitive employment. The vision statement: all adults with autism and intellectual disabilities have the support and services they need, be successful in their jobs, creating neurodiversity in as many workplaces as possible. And that's another really big thing I'd like you all to know, is that I've seen with some of the people I've placed and work, just that work environment again, and that's what's happened in Walgreens. Once you get some of these individuals in, I mean, the chemistry changes, they have more joy, they enjoy their work, they enjoy working with the individual and helping them out. They feel a greater sense of purpose, and it helps educate them as to these special needs. Okay. So what do we need to do? Well, can we do something like engaged employment? It could be more than just working through the Medicaid waiver like SOS is and some of the other organizations. A greater entity, a nonprofit organization that can raise funds through individuals, through businesses. That's why I put employers, businesses up there. They have the jobs, so let's get employers and businesses that have the jobs that need to be filled, and can they support something like this? I think they can. We of course need board of directors, we need an advisory board to start staffing up and hiring people. Volunteers, I talked with a woman recently who has a heart to do life skills. So one of the big things that I want to see in this program is this life skills classroom workshop. And I've been talking to churches about this too. They're doing it to some degree in Myrtle Beach. I'm going to be finding out more about that, but definitely a needed component. How to, everything about taking care of yourself and, integrating maybe some of that other stuff into the work we're doing, but, making it broader for living independently. And then, of course, you always need financial support. So I can't show you, I did want to mention, but it's not working here because I forgot my password for Facebook, but there is, on your tables, you've got information then on SOS Healthcare, and then this information on engaged employment. Take some time to look at it. Now, on the back of my flyer on engaged employment, I put together a piece. This is another big thing. Believe it or not, when we moved here, I'll tell you a quick story. Do I have time, Mike? Do I have a minute or two?
Yeah.
Okay. When we moved here, it was, what the heck do we do? And I've just seen so many people struggle with this. We got hooked up. We did the right things. We called DDSN. We did the interview that I'm talking about. We got set up with an agency to do case management. We didn't find out about the waiver until after we were here for a year. And somebody said, you need to get on a waiver. I said, what the heck is a waiver? Talk to your case manager. I called them up. I said, what's this waiver? Oh, do you want to be put on the waiting list? I said, yeah, put us on the waiting list. So there's just this education thing we have to do on how do you get into the system? How do you get all this stuff and get these services? So I've got that on the back of the flyer. If you know of families, definitely share it with them. Hopefully it's going to be helpful. If you want to friend me, if you're into Facebook, Terry Bolda, I've got my page, and if you friend me, I've got a Facebook page where I do a lot of posts. I do have a website. Now, how do I do that, Mike? If I go,
You're asking the wrong person.
I have to minimize this, right?
Are you trying to pull up your website?
Yeah, because she's got it here. Is it here?
This is
No. Now, if I get rid of this, if I minimize this, and it's right, we didn't have it, right? Yeah, it should be right. There you go. All right. There's a website for engaged employment. Real easy to navigate for employers, individuals. And this is the direction we're taking. I do have a blog. I've got a lot of information on there, different things about my experiences working as a job coach. But the Facebook thing is kind of more of the regular piece on it. So,
Terry, I've got a question.
Yeah.
I feel like I get calls from people all the time. So I've got a 21-year-old, yada yada. They've been through voc rehab. They've done this, but they've kind of. How does someone have to? How can someone start working with you? Do they have to have a waiver to make that happen? Can they do private pay? What's
I can do private pay. I can do that, and I know the cost involved, and that's where I talked to you, Mike. I think I told you it's about, we're looking at $4,000 a year average to do all those things I was talking about.
Okay.
And that's where, if we can connect with, if it's Barbara Stone or some foundation that could maybe be the entity of the funds, we could have scholarships. Right. I mean, in fact, I had that meeting with Barbara Martin. She's the one who told me. She said, you guys ought to do scholarships. Because I think private pay should be part of it. I think everybody should pay something towards this. It's kind of hard if you're looking at a part-time job for somebody a little bit above minimum wage, $4,000 could be kind of hard to do, but we can help them out through scholarships, and they could maybe pay $1,000. I didn't put this slide in there, but I did have family I met, and she moved here from California with her 32-year-old son, and it's like, here they are. She got a job with Verizon. She's a manager. She's working 40, 50 hours a week. Single mother with a 32-year-old son. And they're living in Simpsonville. She shouldn't have moved that far out, but she did. So she would be an ideal candidate. Of course, he did have Medicaid, so they could get support that way. But the way it is yes, I could do it. I'd have to get so many clients because the biggest cost is insurance. And I do have costs for that, so I'd have to get probably 3 clients to get going on private pay.
Okay.
And then the bigger thing, of course, is Medicaid.
Right.
We've got that, so.
Okay.
Or there's also community supports waiver. Our son has never qualified for Medicaid. We're appealing SSI right now, but the state does have a community supports waiver. So even if you don't get Medicaid, talk to your case manager, say, what about the state community supports waiver? Because they can get that. All they need is a diagnosis, so it's a big thing.
Any other questions for Terry?
I just have a plug. I met Terry back when CAN started. This
Right.
guy is very sincere about what he's doing. I thank you.
Thanks, Jay.
I'll second that, just because we're walking it, and
Yeah.
our experience in the different city with both rehab is they were great at what they did, but didn't have that ability to take it down to the level it needed to be with the
Right.
intellectual disability. So finding the job was one thing, having success at that job when those employers didn't really know what to do with
Right.
problems that came up. The difference is the job
Well-
coach can assess it and say,
Right.
you know what, like he didn't know how to do the time for how long he was supposed to take his break.
Right,
Kind
right.
of thought that one. And we do a timer.
Right.
That breaking those things down was what made the difference of what was available through book rehab, because we went that route.
It's got to be individual.
Yeah,
You know,
it's
this
so individual.
one size fits all, put them all through here, da-da-da.
It didn't work. for
Doesn't
us.
work, and with what I'm finding with autism, my son just started a job this week. He's at the Epicurean, family-owned business, smaller environment. That's really the kind I'd like to find. You know, there aren't a lot of jobs. That's the only thing. That's why Walgreens, well, you're looking at 100 jobs or so, but a smaller business, family-owned, they're going to get more attention, and you know, so far. It's just been one week, so cross your fingers on that. But that's really what we need. We need more individualized and comprehensive. You know, it can't be just the soft skills. This. I mean, literally, I won't say the organization, but that was one of the first things for my son. He went through this thing. He knew a lot of what he had to do. It helped him. It was a brush up, but it was like, okay, here's a job fair, check it out. What? I mean, that's where it stops, so.
So we're going to segue, Terry.